So as I was saying, Oskar, he survived the darkest days of human history, the Holocaust. And metaphorically, he was in the lion's den as he survived on Pomorska Street in Poland at the Gestapo headquarters. His father was murdered by a Nazi. And Oskar was actually saved by a Nazi. Oskar, of course, continues to talk about the upstanders in his life that helped him throughout his survival. You know, in 2005, Oskar embarked on a lecturing career about the Holocaust and has spoken now to about 1 million students. Oskar has a legacy for future generations, including his inspiring autobiography, A Boy's Story, A Man's Memory, Surviving the Holocaust from 1933 to 1945, and a nonprofit that he's established, Voice of Tolerance, which shines light on the scourge of bullying as well as prejudice that's going on in our nation. Now, a project is underway to build a Holocaust Education Center in the heart of Phoenix at the Arizona Jewish Historical Society, where Oskar will be a key focus to provide educational programs for students throughout Arizona and the rest of the United States, especially using his curriculum, the Hope Chess, which was sponsored by Scottsdale Arts. These opportunities will include field trips to the museum, guided tours, as well as experienced docent lectures and classes on site with his curricula and other resources to help teachers. Now, students that visit our new center will have the opportunity to experience an interactive biography of one of our local survivors who joins us in this room, Oskar Knoblauch. And using state-of-the-art interactive technology, Oskar's Dimensions in Testimony interview from the USC Shoah Foundation will allow students to ask Oskar's image over 1,000 questions in real time related to his Holocaust experience. Soon, our survivors will be gone, and the students that are listening to them now will be the last generation to hear their stories. It's now time to find ways to keep those stories alive. And I'm just so grateful that we have so many ways to keep Oskar Knoblauch's story alive. I love you, Oskar. Come on up.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for the wonderful words. The Holocaust was not a picnic. It was something which we do have to talk about. If we don't, it no doubt will be repeated. So how important is it really that each and every one of us become a champion and teach our next generations about that horrible time? Holocaust is nothing new. They're being performed on a daily basis in different ways, in different places, by different nations. It is our duty, the human duty, to put a stop to it or curb it somehow. The photograph you see was taken in 1932 in Leipzig, Germany, where I was born. I'm the little guy. Yes, we're smiling because in 1932, or up to 1932, our life was great. It was fabulous. We as Jews were accepted everywhere in Germany. We had access to everything, just like Germans did. No one called me a dirty Jew. It was wonderful. Our next door neighbors, they were Christians. The whole neighborhood was Christian. You couldn't find a Jew if you wanted to. So what happened? You know, I talk to young people, students, and I tell them that words do matter. words you say, words what you utter, what you call people is important. This is how a Holocaust starts, because words turn into hate. Hate turns into conspiracy theories. And that is a bad brew. This causes the Holocaust. Our next door neighbors, the Dorfmans, they were Christians, of course, but they were our best neighbors, the best friends. We never locked our doors. Imagine that. You go to bed at night, the next door neighbors in your apartment house, they don't lock the doors. We come and go as we please. They had two kids, a girl and a boy. The girl was my sister's age. The boy, Günther, was a little older than I. The two of us grew up like two brothers, always together, being members of a sports club, attending it twice a week, being on the same team. As little as I was, 7 years old, I was on a soccer team. So was Günther. We're at the time of our lives. Nothing will ever go wrong. Everything will stay the same because, well, there's camaraderie, acceptance, and love. My sister and his sister, like two sisters. My father, he used to be or was in World War I, wearing a German uniform, the same uniform as Mr. Dorfman had on, the same uniform Hitler wore, and it was the same war, the same time. Yes, that man fought for Germany, a Jew. 4 years in trenches, came home as a decorated German soldier with medals on his chest and the rank of lieutenant to boot. Hitler was in the same war. He too was decorated as a corporal. So what changed? Words, obviously. Okay. Help. I can't get it forward. Okay. Words. Growing up in Germany, our parents, and I'm sure that most of Germans, taught their children to be respectful. That's not a new word, really. Over here it is. We seem to be practicing our lives and omitting the word respect. We don't teach our children respect anymore. They don't have time to sit back and be explained what that really means. But our parents taught us to be respectful, to respect yourselves. Do you know, when there are 300 to 400 students in an auditorium, even more, and I ask that question, do you respect yourselves? Raise your hand. Only dozens of hands amongst hundreds of children are being raised. They don't respect themselves. How can you not respect yourselves? If you cannot respect yourself, how can you respect somebody else, a stranger? But we were taught to respect ourselves, our family members, our friends, and even, as my dad insisted, respect your enemies. Yes, we grew up with those words: respect, love, no hate. And no wonder you have a photograph with full of smiles. And then you have people coming along who use bad words, conspiracy theories, hate, and they're repeating it over and over again. Today we call this conspiracy theories or propaganda. Joseph Goebbels, and he, by the way, was very educated in the highest universities. His professors, by the way, were Jews. They instilled supposedly humility and education in his head. And he was educated, but he turned to be a Jew hater with a poison tongue, using words. Again, there's an example that words do matter, but this guy was repeating lies, and so was Hitler. And in the early years, as the Nazis were trying to come to power, the courts in Germany told Hitler and all his ilks, gentlemen, you are lying. And they said, yes, we are. And we will continue lying until people believe in those lies, because we will continue repeating those lies until they get so sick and tired of hearing it that they will believe that what we say is the truth. And they won. Do you get this now? Today, we have people in our government, right in Washington, for the past 5 or 6 years, who lying to you, who telling stories which are not true. Anti-Semitism is popping out all over the place. They are members of white supremacist groups. Why? What's wrong with the picture? Where are we going here? Young people have to do something about it. Remember one thing. This man, Joseph Goebbels and Adolf Hitler, promised the German people that he will make Germany great again, and that he will build Germany to last 1,000 years. And in that Germany, the only people who will be able to live will be white Aryan people, Germans. So who are the Aryans? According to the Nazi ideology, they are blonde people with blue eyes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, indeed, they're beautiful people. But I insist that people with dark hair and dark eyes are just as beautiful. And you cannot have a nation to be blonde and blue-eyed, because that was a lie. Günther looked like me. I looked like Günther. We had brown hair. Yeah, I used to have hair when I was young. And I had dark brown eyes. They're still brown. And so did Günther. Goebbels, this man you see, and the Führer, and 95% of all Nazi leaders had dark hair. So where are the Aryans? It was a ploy. It was a ploy so he can pick on the Jews. Now, I'm white. I'm just as white as any Christian. My skin is white. You know what wrong with the picture was in Germany at the time? In Europe, as a rule, especially in Germany, the only people who lived there at the time were white people. There were no black people. There were no Asians. There were Slavs, but they were not considered to be white. Imagine that. Have you ever seen the Russians or the Yugoslavs or the Polish people? They're white, aren't they white? Are they or not? Of course they're white. According to the Nazis, no. They're subhuman. So basically, the Nazis couldn't pick on anyone in Germany except the Jews, because there was nobody else to pick on. And they succeeded very well. Very well. I tell you what, after the the photograph of my family was taken, it was 1 year. A year later, Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. Now, that's pretty neat to become Chancellor of Germany, almost saying to himself, I will be everything rolled into one, because I'm going to make Germany great again. And by the way, I have seen Germany before as a child, and I've seen Germany after the war as a grown-up almost. And what I have seen in Germany was not great at all. It was a total disaster. Germany was in ruins. The German people were homeless because they were bombed out of their home apartments. They had nothing to eat. They were feasting on dead horses. And when that gave out, they were eating dogs. That's right. And that is called Great Germany. If it wouldn't be for the Marshall Plan, Germany would never have been bounced back. So much for creating and saying, I'm going to make Germany great again, really. Remember that. Read this real close. My friend Günther didn't waste time. My best friend, he joined the Hitler Youth. Once he did, he didn't acknowledge me anymore. He wouldn't speak to me. His leader said, you cannot associate with a Jew anymore. The sports club, the coaches knew us so well. By name, always glad to see us come in. You Jews cannot come in here anymore, only for Aryans. My teacher in school greeted me in front of the room and said, you will not be sitting at your desk anymore, which was up front right next to Günther's desk. You will be sitting in the back and you will not participate in any school activities. Imagine you being 8 years old, you come into school and you're being pushed up in a corner somewhere and you're being totally ignored. But not exactly completely, because your students, the very peers, the very ones who knew you, who associated with you. I mean, I was on a school team. I was in a chorus. Yes, I had a good voice. No, I can't do that anymore because I'm a Jew. I cannot play soccer anymore because I'm a Jew. You're being bullied officially by the students. Officially, the teachers cannot interfere. They will not stop it. It was not a good time. And you have to sit there because by the time another half a year or year passed, they have burned all the school books. The Nazis will bring new books now. And the new books are now being taught by the teachers, which you are sitting in the back and you're listening to how they're being taught how to hate you because you are a Jew. Now you would think that there was an overwhelming amount of Jews in Germany. No, on the contrary, we were not. Basically, maybe a little bit more than half of 1%. So you go to school and you learn nothing. When my parents complained, they simply said, if you don't like the way your children are being treated, don't send them to school. We stopped going to school. We sat in our apartments for a year and a half, doing absolutely nothing, not even going out on the street. Because if you go out on the street, you don't have a uniform on, this stupid uniform, you'll be bullied. We are waiting for legal papers for my dad to get received and leave Germany. So finally, in mid-1936, we were able to leave Germany. Now, you come to Poland. I was elated. A new life is beginning for me. There was one problem. The problem was that I didn't speak Polish. I come to school and I'm being bullied. Now, this is Poland. I'm being bullied. I'm being bullied because I'm a German. I'm being bullied because I'm a Jew. That's not good because, you know, Jews have done bad things. At least that's what the church in Poland thought and taught their children. So there was a problem. And I would come home crying and almost refuse going to school. And Dad and Mom would say, you're going to have to learn how to speak Polish real fast. And they hired a tutor. And I finally decided that, yes, if I want to succeed, if I want to be accepted, I need to speak their language. Within 8 months, I was lucky enough to speak better than anybody born in Poland when it comes to children. And lo and behold, suddenly I was accepted. Now here's a little lesson to be learned. How to accept a stranger, or if you're the stranger, how do you get accepted by the others? You might look differently. Your religion is different. You speak a different language. You should not be considered to be an outsider. Communication between one person and another is very important. Education is part of it. If you educate your children the right way, you can teach them that we're all created equal. We're all the same. We're all human beings. We all belong to one specific species. We're not the animal species, but we do behave, some of us, like animals. Yes, I found out the hard and the easy way that if you really want to be accepted by another person, it is up to you how you're going to handle this. You have to be halfway acceptable. Find out how the other people live. Be interested in what they do, in what they believe in, even though that your beliefs are different. The one guy in school in Poland who was ahead of the class, the smartest kid, who hated me so badly, his name was Zbigniew Mankiewicz, a Roman Catholic. When I finally was able to corner him and talk to him in his native language, he became my best friend. Holidays, Christmas, I decorated the trees every year with him. You see, those are the things which you have to participate in to prove that you are just as human as anybody else. You have your holidays, I have mine, and he was invited to my holidays as well. We got along just fine. Again, inseparable. So I've proven a point. I know that this works. People in the world can get along. Oh yeah, my kids cannot play with others, the neighbors, because they're black. So what? Their skin is dark. They're as human as anybody else. I found that out. You know, it's a shame that we are educated people and yet we're so dumb. In Germany, we call it, we are Dummkopf. And some of us are educated, but that doesn't mean that we cannot be educated Dummkopfs. And yeah, I don't know if you know what Dummkopf means. Dumm means dumb or idiot. Yeah, the Germans used to call me a Dummkopf. And I accepted it. I didn't make an issue of it. But I also insist that today we have educated Dummkopfs, educated idiots in our own government who are trying to abolish our democracy. Now, the issue for me to speak about here is about upstanders. There are no better upstanders than the people, the 2 handfuls or more of people in 1776 who gathered together to do something. Do you remember what that was? What did they do? They're the ones who made this country to be the strongest and richest and powerful nation in the whole world. And we have survived it by those papers for almost over 240 some odd years. Those are upstanders. Those people, each and every one of them were upstanders because they knew that they stood up against the king. They stood up against something which could have cost them their lives and their fortunes. They could have lost everything. But they insisted that they would like to have a constitution, a kind of a rule which will prevail. And this is the only paper, I don't have to remind you, in the whole world, in any country that survived this many years. And yet, we had some people in this country, right here, who tried to overthrow this only a couple of years ago. Or was it a year ago? Shame. That is treason. When Hitler became chancellor, within 2 months, he blamed, of course, the communists, but it wasn't the communists. It was the Nazis who burned down their own capital, the Reichstag, burned it down. Hitler didn't want to rebuild it because he said, we don't need the Reichstag. I am the Reichstag. I am the Führer. One nation, one country, one leader. That's what he said. And there was one man here, he wanted the same thing, evidently, because when he saw that our capital was being attacked, he did not say, he didn't do anything. He waited. And people ask me, can anything like this happen in this country? At first, I used to say no, but I changed my mind because I've seen it with my own eyes, where people take our flag and use it as a weapon. Shame. I wasn't born here. I'm a naturalized citizen, which is great. The street I live on, it's a corner house. Across the street, there's another corner house. I'm a naturalized citizen, and the man across the street is naturalized as well. The other people, as we go along, they're all veterans of World War II. Navy, Army, Marine. Imagine, 4th of July, who flies the flag? Oskar and Joe across the street. Two men who became naturalized citizens of the United States. Why do we fly the flag? Because we're proud of our country. To be here in a democratic, free country. The other people who fought in World War II didn't have the decency to even put the flag out. So who was the patriot? Who's the patriot here? Needless to say, life in Poland turned out to be like wonderful. Now we're talking about this. The day is September the 1st, 1939. Yes, the troops are going to Poland. They're going to invade Poland, and of course, war starts. Wars are terrible. They stink. They're bloody. Poland is being occupied. They need now a man who is going to run. He's a governor. Hans Frank, a personal friend of Adolf Hitler. The one sitting down. Another Jew hater. He says, my Führer, thank you for the job, and I'm going to go to Poland to shoot the Jews. Trains come in with special soldiers. Makeshift signs say, we are traveling to Poland to shoot Jews. Openly. Now, if you look close, there's a woman standing there with holding a child, no doubt a boy, because he's suspenders. Remember that image. I will compare it in a little while with another picture. They will come to Poland and shoot the Jews. Come marching in. And so the Holocaust by bullets started, because they see, in other words, to shoot Jews, you have to use bullets. Concentration camps didn't exist. The Poles didn't have any concentration camps. The Germans will have to build them. Building them will take time, at least a couple of years. But Hans Frank promised his Führer that he's going to start killing the Jews, which is right. Laws. When I came to Germany, I didn't speak Polish. When the Germans came, of course, they couldn't converse with the Poles either. And the Poles didn't speak to the Germans because they didn't speak German. The Germans have laws which have to be obeyed. So the Germans started to print laws in two languages, German and Polish. This is a benign sign. Jews are not allowed in this park. Big deal. It's in German and in Polish. But there were other signs warning the Polish population that if they catch anyone helping a Jew, that they and their families will be executed. If anybody is being caught killing a German soldier, that the Germans will execute 100 people. And the Jews will have to wear the Star of David. Now, if you're 40 years old and you were Jewish, you had to go to work. Because you see, once the Germans came in, food production, clothing, anything else what the people needed was under the jurisdictions of the Germans. There was nothing being bought on the open market. They rationed the food to the Polish and to the Jews. The Poles would get a certain amount of food, and the Jews would get half of what the Poles were getting. So you're 14 years old, girl or boy, and you have to go to work. So you go to work and you come home tired, but you come home in one piece. But then, when the law came out that you have to wear the Star of David, and in Southwest Poland, in an area which was called the Galicia, we had to wear the Star of David the way you see it, on our right forearm. Now you walk out, I did at least, and I'm being suddenly surrounded by hoodlums. almost as if they would wait, because they knew, because of the signs, that we will be wearing the Star of David. So they were waiting. The hoodlums, the bullies, they surrounded me. They called me bad names. They spit at me. And they eventually let me go with a bloody nose. But what about the girls? They didn't give the girls bloody noses. They did other things to them. You can imagine what boys will do if they're allowed to do it. Oh, I'm going to go back to my station. I just wanted to prove this thing here. Anyhow, so the bullies were surrounded by other people, older. They could have been their mothers, their fathers, strangers. They didn't do anything. They were laughing. They were laughing what the boys were doing. They were clapping their hands. They were encouraging them. Those people we call bystanders. Bystanders are useless people. As far as I'm concerned, they never should be born. Don't ever be a bystander, whoever you are. Be the opposite. Be an upstander, a person who stands up, speaks out, and acts. And does something which is good, which will help someone. It was nice to come home with a bloody nose. I was crying, complaining to my dad, because you go to your dad because he's the one who's supposed to be helping. And he would say, you have to learn how to stand up for yourself. Learn how to stand up for yourself and fight for your freedom and for your rights, but never use your fists, because fists will get you into trouble. Okay, Dad, how do I fight them if I don't have a weapon or my fists? That smart man would tell us, you have to figure this out by yourselves. So days later, I found out what it was. My brain finally clicked in. After all, God gave me a brain just like he gave a brain to all of you. All you have to do is just use it. If you don't use your brain, you're not going to do anything. Your brain is your computer. What do you think education does for the brain? It does a wonderful thing. Needless to say, I came out, they were waiting for me. I smiled. For the first time, I greeted my bullies with a big, big smile. And I said plainly and loud that I am proud who I am and I'm proud to be a Jew. I say that to the kids in schools too, because I know that in every school there are bullies. They bully them for their religion, for their skin color, for their clothes they wear, for the language they speak. I teach them to say the same thing with a smile on their face, that they're proud of who they are. And they should be, because each and every one of us is a special person, one of a kind, period. It worked for me. And I think it worked when I say that in schools, because I have received many letters saying that for the first time in my life, I can walk down the street with the head up high. That's gratifying. This picture shows you a man shooting a child. That soldier has an order. Kill the child first. Let the mother witness the killing of the child, and then kill the mother. Now, I wonder if the mother who said goodbye to her husband at the station, holding her little boy, knows what her husband is doing for living, killing little babies. And you keep shooting the Jews any which way. If this would be a video, you see the people actually falling. After 2 years, they stopped shooting the Jews. Why? Because the concentration and death camps are ready. Now we're going to use the cars and put 200 people in at a time and take them to concentration camps and death camps. It's going to be more efficient. A train in Poland can be in the nearest camp within 2 hours, but the Germans are not going to do this. They're going to take that train, 50 carloads with 200 people in it. Most likely you would be in there with your children. And they park it on this railroad siding for 2 days and 2 nights. No food, no water. Forget about the winter or summer. You know what happens in the summer? You die of thirst. In the winter, you freeze to death. If you do make it to the camps, this is what you look like. Now, they were already sorted out. The Germans have no need for those people, those women, those children. No, you're going to get in an undressing room, get a shower, which is nothing but a gas chamber. When those pellets are being released, you have to inhale the gas. Children usually take 10 minutes and they choke to death. You physically, practically cough your lungs out. Adults like you will take 20, 25 minutes. Your bodies will be cremated, and that's the end of the line. If you survive, you're going to be in a ghetto. 480 calories you will get. 480 calories, folks. Check your calories when you eat. You have this for one day. I'm working in the ghetto to pick up garbage cans and put it on a wagon. The wagon comes from outside the city. A horse handler, a Roman Catholic, a farmer's son. He noticed one day that I'm very weak. Of course, you're weak. So he decided to bring and smuggle something in. He gives it to me. He had a little compartment underneath of his wagon. It was a loaf of bread his mother had baked. And he would bring me bread very often. Now, he was risking his life each and every time, not his only life, but his whole family's life. Because if he would have been caught, they all would have been shot. He was an Upstander. Didn't know me, but something told him I need to step up and I need to do something. Headquarters of the Gestapo. The ghetto is being liquidated. If you don't have a job the Germans need, you are toast. A good guy who is a Gestapo man, also one of the members of 250, befriended my dad earlier because of my dad's profession. And he brings me into the building. The guy who's supposed to run the building is the Hausmeister. Yeah, he had 2 stars. He sees me and says, I don't have a job for that dirty Jew. For 15 minutes, they argued. And finally, somebody walked in and I had to translate something from German into Polish, which I did. And the guy who didn't want me said to me in a dirty way, you stood there for 15 minutes, understood what we were saying, you didn't open your blah, blah mouth. Again, my secret weapon was a smile. I stood there like a German, straight, even though I was skinny. And I said to him with my smile on my face, Herr Eckert, that was his name because the other guy called him that. Our parents taught us never to speak unless you're spoken to, and you, sir, didn't speak to me. And he kind of grinned. And that man, who couldn't care less whether I die, because he asked him, why should I give him a job? And the good guy says, well, he's going to die in a death camp. And he would say, so what? He's a Jew, isn't he? He's going to die sooner or later. I don't have anything for him. But needless to say, he gave me the job. And he became my friend for almost 2 years and saved my life. There were others. One more. Because you see, the time came that for us to leave. Here's another thing which you have to remember. Yes, If we don't remember the past, we cannot build a future. It's almost an impossibility. My parents. Now, one of those goons murdered my dad 8 months before we were liberated by the Soviet army. My mom, long story, but maybe if you have ever a chance to read my book, you'll see how we were separated. She eventually survived, barely. My dad didn't. My brother and sister and I, we escaped from the headquarters of the Gestapo. One day, actually it was less than a day. We escaped in the afternoon at 5:25 p.m. on January the 17th with a key in our hands, which was given by a German lieutenant to save our lives. The apartment he shared with his wife, and he already left. We got to the place, got into the apartment, hid in the basement, and the next morning, the Soviets were liberating Krakow. So we survived, the three of us. Wise words. Here's a man who knew exactly what life was all about. And respect, absolutely, by all means. And whatever you do, try to be or become an upstander. You don't have to be a hero. Sometimes a smile can do. A good word to another person, a helpful gesture. Accept the person for what they are. Don't make a difference. They are different. I've done this. I think I can consider myself an upstander. I've done it in many ways, and it always worked. You'll be surprised how you can change the world by being an upstander. Eckert, Fritzsche, and all those who stood up for me changed the world. Today, I suppose I can say proudly that because I was spared, and my sister was spared, and my brother, we have today about 40-some plus people walking in this world who wouldn't be here otherwise. If I wouldn't have survived, I wouldn't be here. This lady here wouldn't be sitting here, my daughter. I wouldn't have a great-grandson. This is how you change, not knowing how. But Yashik, oh my goodness, there were 8 people involved in all who stood up in one way or another, helping, risking their lives. But you don't have to risk your life. You know, I did things in this country before I was even a naturalized citizen. And I made a lot of noise. And nobody threw me out of this country. And I'm proud of what I've done. So I believe I've come to the end of my story. And I appreciate your patience. And I wish you good health. And hopefully we can get back to normal, not wearing the masks. God bless you and bless your families. And be an upstander. And don't lose your country. Don't lose your democracy. This comes from an old geezer who knows, who has seen what happens when you believe in promises which people cannot keep. Your democracy is your biggest weapon. It's your biggest freedom. You lose it and you have nothing. It might be pretty for a couple of years, but then later on, it goes into ruins. Don't lose it. Remember, a lot of people died so that you can sit and sleep at night peacefully. Hold on to it. It's worth it. Thank you.